Well, hello and welcome everyone to our IT Leaders Q4 Playbook webinar. I am Brad Watson, and along with my hosting duties for TrellisPoint's Ungrow Show podcast, I work alongside our Microsoft Partner channel to align TrellisPoint's go-to-market activities with your priority scenarios, specifically involving Dynamics 365, Power Platform, and Copilot. So our handsome guests joining me today are Mike Spence. He is our VP of Enterprise Delivery. Hello, Mike. And Andrew Ford, he is our VP of Innovation. Hi, Andrew. And Mike and Andrew dedicate a great deal of their time to working with clients just like you to align your technology and business goals and to help you grow strategically, minimizing unwanted disruptions and accelerating your time to value. So, our hope today is that by the end of this webinar, you'll have a few actionable takeaways that will set you up for not only Q4 but Q1 success. So a couple, we just have one basic ground rule coming out of here. We know that most webinars end with a Q&A session at the end that is filled with deafening silence. So if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat and we will try to answer it as we go, or we'll just try to fake it and make it sound like we know what you're talking about. But we'll do our best to address them. But with all that being said, we know that Q4 is a crucial time for most of you. And some of you might be looking to deploy the last of your budget into high impact projects. Others may be planning your tech roadmap for next year. And some of you are operating on tight budgets, but still need to make a big impact before the year wraps up. So, whether you need to increase the value of solutions you already own, need to justify next year's budget, or need to address tech debt or other liabilities, Q4 is often when the pressure is highest. So, today, we want to try to cover four topics. One, AI data readiness. Two, shadow IT and shadow AI preparedness. We'll circle back to that in a second. We want to help you create a plan to maximize the value of your Microsoft investments and boost adoption. And we want to help you use Q4 to align your technology to your business goals. So hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll come away with those four good takeaways. So let's dig right in and talk about the topic that is dominating most of our headlines right now, and that is
The
AI.
elections. No.
Yeah,
Trick or treating. What day we should trick or treat. No.
yeah, I was
Those-
trying not to date this, but you said trick or treating, and so here we are. So
Well, we
now
got the
this web
spooky background with Andrew, so I figured, people are gonna see that. So
exactly. But AI, that's everything that's in the headlines right now. So we know that our entire economy is getting ready to go that way. Microsoft's all in, Google's all in, Amazon, you name it. All the major investments are going that way. And so we're in the fever of this hype cycle. And so we hear some common things as we're out there on the streets. And some of the common fears we hear: what if we spend a lot of money and we don't get it right? We know we need to incorporate it, but we don't know where to begin, or we feel like we should know more about it than we do. And so these are all fears. So let's kind of break that into manageable chunks. So, Mike, I know I stole a favorite phrase of yours there, which is the hype cycle.
the
So,
hype cycle.
yeah, talk to me a little bit about the hype cycle.
Well, I think it depends on who you are, if you're excited about that or not. And some people don't buy in, and some people are early adopters. But usually it's going to start with this innovation trigger, something brand new that just came out, like AI. So AI comes out, it's really cool. There's all sorts of expectations on what it can do, and so it hits a peak, and like have you seen ChatGPT? Have you seen what it can do? It's really cool, and all those things are true. And it's starting to get, the hype cycle is up here. And then there's some delusion. People are starting to get delusional. There's a lot of disappointment. It's starting to, it was pretty good, but have you seen that it can't even do fingers? It puts 7 thumbs on people, and actually it just flat out lying to me. And then the AI community says, well, that's not lying. That's a hallucination, which I think kids are going to start picking up on that. I'm not lying to you. I was hallucinating. And then finally, things will level out, and then there's this whole slope of enlightenment where, oh, okay, it's getting better and we can actually use it. And so some things that get into the hype cycle, there can be a lot of hype, and it could just kind of fall off. You never hear from it again. I don't know, Beanie Babies. No, it's not a technology, but you know what I mean when it comes to that stuff. But with AI, it was like that too, and people were pretty scared to jump all in, didn't know what it could do. And I think companies are still there. Where are we in this hype cycle, or where are individuals? Are they excited about it and the possibilities? Are they, just this state of delusion and say, I'm disappointed, I'm never going to use it, or are they starting to get enlightened by what it can do? But hype cycle's real, and you want to avoid just jumping into things without a plan. Is the way we would suggest to handle it.
Yeah, that's a good, Andrew. I know there's a phrase that used a lot of time, but you're on the ground. You're every day. You're talking to customers,
He's
and
in the
so
streets.
you're out there hand to hand.
On
So,
the streets.
what advice would you give to customers regarding not just AI, but kind of any technology initiative?
Oh, you know, I I can tell you what he was saying. Okay. I don't know.
So,
Oh, are you talking about you're talking about his was it FOMO, right?
FOMO. Yeah,
Yeah, the fear of missing out.
yeah. So,
So
yeah, talk,
oh
Mike. Jump in for Andrew as he gets
You
his
guys hear me or not?
situation.
yeah, we
Yeah, you're
can.
there
I was
now.
getting ready to
Oh,
go through
sorry.
my own. I was gonna do my Andrew impression of FOMO.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to my mic there. It was working earlier. Yeah, so everything for me always goes back to having a strategic mindset and a strategic approach to work, because if we can really think about what we're doing, it usually has more value. And so I think what happens a lot of times with things like AI, when you have the hype cycle, is you feel like you need to implement it because everyone else is. So we call that FOMO. It's not a new term. Obviously, people use that all over pop culture, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And so FOMO is never a good reason to implement anything. I've had customers who, when they came to us and wanted to implement a CRM system, and we finally got to the brass tacks of why, they said because everyone else has one. And that's not a good reason. Maybe you do need one. I'm not saying that you don't, but you don't need it because everybody else has it. You need it because your users need it, because you need to solve business problems and you need to figure out what those are. And so this is all about, again, back to the point that Mike made, like, don't, don't just buy into the hype, but, have a plan. And plans start with, you have to know where you're going in order to know how to get there. And so you
Yeah.
got to really spend some time thinking about where is it that we need to go. And then a lot of times we can figure out how to use these tools.
Yeah.
So when we talk about starting strategically,
Yeah.
what's some of the low hanging fruit that people can look at in Q4 to where they could, even from a context of AI, how can they start strategically with it?
But yeah, I mean, so, sometimes people say start small. And that's a great approach. Starting small is fine. Sometimes that's also just checking check boxes so that you can get things checked off and feel good about it. I like to say start strategic. Again, back to the strategic mindset. And to me, what that means is really sit down and, again, put a roadmap together, whether that's on your own or with our help. We offer strategic growth workshops, which I know we're going to talk about later. And it's all about aligning yourselves, your technology and your technology plan to your business goals. And so if you don't know what your business goals are, that's where you start. You start just, and even if it's within your department, what are your goals for your department for the year, for next year? Start materializing those, because if you can put some goals on paper, then it's a lot easier to figure out what you need to do. And the other thing is, you don't have to get it right the first time. You can always adjust. It's always something that you go back to and you reevaluate. You don't put it on there and write it in a stone tablet. You put it in, pencil if you need to, and erase it. So start strategic. And once you've done that and you've mapped out your business goals and your goals for the year and what some of the things that could align to those are, then the small things come out, the things that the low hanging fruit that actually will make a difference and not just be a checkbox that you check off. And once you've got those things, then you can start taking action on those.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes as you put that plan together, and you figure out where you do want to go, I'm assuming will start to uncover potential roadblocks that would prevent us from actually getting to that goal.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I know, Mike, I've heard you talk about many times, some of those roadblocks we get into are often our own data quality. So when we
Mhm.
have a goal and then we want to put together some use cases for maybe how we would work to that goal or get some ideas lined out. Some things that handicap us are our own data quality. What have you seen in this area?
Yeah, yeah, definitely talking about the data quality is going to be a big issue. But I mean, when we talk about AI readiness in general and how people may adopt and use this technology, we often find our customers skip the people part of this. So when you're trying to do anything strategically, as Andrew and I both believe in wholeheartedly, is that you have to have your people, process, and data aligned, and can't skip the people process of AI readiness. You have to have executive buy-in. You have to understand the impact of what AI could have to your industry and what you could possibly do with it, and then build that plan out, get things aligned exactly like Andrew said. But to continue to prepare yourself, you got to look at the people in the skill gap. You know, what sort of upskilling may be needed to even adopt this thing. So it's not just the technology, but at the end of the day, you got to be in the cloud and you got to have good data. And I would say most organizations around the world would say they are not AI ready as it comes to data. And so really they need to adopt a data first mindset and kind of get this thing rolled out in a mindset across the organization, is that we prioritize quality data. And what that means is eliminate duplicates, make sure you understand where your data is coming from. So if you haven't done that, do a quick inventory of what data do we count on and where does it come from. Can you collect all that information in one spot? Most organizations can't, because if they did, it's going to be a lot of duplicates that they're going to have to now manage, and it can be quite a mess. So data quality, data structure, models, data governance has never been more important. So if I'm mentioning some things like data audit, data quality, data governance, and you already know that that is not something you have in place in your organization, then I would prioritize getting your head around that this quarter to prepare you for next year.
Um, so one thing I want to talk, because again, we are in this push, this hype cycle right now for AI. And so sometimes people are like, they look at it and they, well, I have all of these manual processes that
Mhm.
I could potentially alleviate if we did something with AI. And so
Sure.
one of the issues that I guess you would still one of the reasons we still do manual processes is because our data is all over the place. and
That's
and
one way.
as a person, I might know I have to go here, or I got to go talk to Steve down the hall, or I got to look in that old file or whatever. I
Yep.
might know institutionally how to do that, but some of my data is just called janky and all over the place. And so there's a reason that we're doing a lot of these manual processes. So that seems like maybe a good place to start, getting a good inventory. I think Andrew mentioned that, getting a good inventory of where your data is. But maybe this leads into another question of mine. And we're not saying you don't necessarily need to start an AI project this year or even next year, or
At all.
maybe it's never going to work for you. But let's just say that next year comes around and you're like, you know what, the technology has matured. I've seen enough. My competitors are doing this. I want to now jump into that playground.
Yeah.
uh, you're not going to be able to just jump right in to where your competitors were or are,
Right.
or just get to the end result. So there are some very foundational things that you need to do right now. And so what's a checklist of things you can do right now, Q4, just assuming that in the next year, 6 months to year, 18 months, you're going to be undertaking some type of large initiative like that?
Well, go ahead, Andrew. You got one?
Well, I think that one of the things you want to do, and this goes is a little bit redundant, but the more you understand about what your priorities are strategically, the more you understand about what problems you're facing as a business, then you can start identifying what potential areas AI could help you in, and maybe the technology isn't there yet to help in those areas, but you can do things to get ready so that when it is, because they are pouring just insane amounts of investment into developing it, and it's developing rapidly, then it's better to be ready when that happens than and ready to execute than to have to start the cycle then. And so, getting your data, understanding again where those problems are and what data might help solve those problems, and making sure that data has high quality, because I can speak for most of my customers. The systems that we implement are great. They solve a lot of problems, but one of the biggest issues is just data freshness, keeping it clean, keeping it fresh, keeping it up to date. And so if we identify some key data, then we need to figure out what processes can we put in place to help clean that up and make sure that it stays clean. And AI can help with that too. So it's kind of a circular thing potentially. But I think that's one piece of a checklist, is just figuring out what those things are, and the data that supports those, and making sure that maybe just even doing an evaluation of what we feel like the quality of that data is.
Yeah, and I think that's great on the data side for sure. I mean, we've been hitting that because it's so important. But I think what's missed too is the executive buy-in, and getting a leader with our strategic growth workshop. Is one of the first things we're doing, is we're trying to understand what your business goals are, where you're trying to go as a company, and aligning all of these things to helping you reach those goals. And too many times that doesn't happen. And so if we can get executive buy-in and get stakeholders who are willing to take an honest strategic look at this, then go through, because the data quality stuff is going to be good for your company no matter if you go with AI or not. Honestly, all your other systems will perform better if you can get this data mindset down. But beyond that, you got your stakeholder buy-in. You maybe come up with some good ideas. I think people need to make sure they understand it. Get yourself kind of boned up a little bit on, what does AI mean to my industry? What are my competitors doing with AI right now? What could it mean to my team productivity wise? Where is AI going to take an organization like us in the next year, 2 years, because it's going fast? And I think a lot of people are still not even there. They haven't really done that sort of analysis. I'd take Q4 to make sure you have a clear understanding of what AI can potentially do, and do the data stuff and get your executive team bought in. And then you can't forget about governance, and you can't forget about security. How would we secure this stuff? How would we make sure that things are going to work the way we need them to? So stakeholder buy-in, your data, research your industry, and make sure that you have governance and security plans around all of this, and that will help you get more AI ready for next year.
And Mike, you just mentioned stakeholders, you mentioned executives, mentioned users. At the end of the day, those are all people, right? So
all people. You got to
all
get
of
it all
those,
lined up.
all of those are people. So as we transition into our next bullet point here, we want to talk a little bit about how all this affects people, and some of the ways they manifest this in their work in regards to shadow IT and shadow AI. So let's level set a little bit. Andrew, you want to hit us some knowledge on what both of those terms mean, in case you're not familiar with it?
Yeah, sure. So I think any IT leader out there knows that unless your systems are completely locked down so that it's not possible, people are out there using tools to help do their jobs. Tools that are not adopted by the organization, tools that are not something that everyone's using. That they're finding ways to get their job done, and they're not necessarily even they're not out there using them because they're fun. They're not video games. They're using them because they need help, or they think that something might be able to help them do something better, easier, faster, whatever. And so shadow IT in general is just that concept of people using tools to do their jobs that are not part of your known tool set that you've deployed. And shadow AI in particular is using AI to do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, using ChatGPT, using Copilot, using whatever, to generate documents, to write emails, to write code. And so that's, that can be dangerous for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you for those definitions. So let me, with that, piggybacking on that, let me hit you with some stats. So this is from the 2024 Work Trends Index annual report. This came out in May, so pretty recent. Got a couple months on us, but per that report, 75% of knowledge workers use AI at work every day, And as of May 2024, 46% of them had started using it in the last 6 months.
Mm.
Okay, so it's fairly new. 78% of them are bringing their own tools to work, and 52% of them are reluctant to admit they use it for important tasks. Okay, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of red flags there to me for several reasons. But how can we help our employees by providing tools they need, but also maintain proper levels of compliance and security? So I'll throw that out there for whoever wants to jump in on that.
Well, I mean, I can say like those stats don't surprise me on. I love that last one is they won't admit it, because we find like the great thing about AI and the dangerous thing about AI is that a lot of them right now at least are free. You can get access to some very powerful free AI tools, and they're easy to use, meaning all skill levels. I mean, you don't have to be a tech expert to get into these tools and use them. And I think like first is when you have shadow AI going on, these are your folks that are using AI. Now, AI is not going away. People are going to just find more and more creative ways to use them to get their job done more efficiently. So I think the first thing you got to do in an organization is you got to create awareness. You got to make sure that you know this first of all. Do a tech audit. Make sure that you're keeping tabs on what systems, what apps are being accessed within your environment all the time, and flag the ones that could be of concern. But I wouldn't just go and just bring the hammer down. I would want to go and collaborate with these teams and have an understanding of why are you using the tool. Because I would say, I don't know what the stat is on this one, Brad. We can look it up, but most are not doing anything maliciously. They're not trying to bring the company down. They're not trying to do anything they're not supposed to do. They're just trying to get their job done. Workers have done that forever. So creating awareness, letting folks know AI is here. We understand you're going to use some of these tools, but we need a policy. We need some governance around which tools, how do we use them, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And I'll make up a stat that I would say 90% of the companies that out there that I've ever met have no formal governance or policies around the use of AI.
Yeah. So as we are looking at Q4, and we're like, how can we set ourselves up for success? We always want to align ourselves back to that. One of the other talk points and stats that came out of that was that 45% of the executives in that report were not investing in AI tools. Okay,
Mhm.
I can understand that. These next ones I think are big opportunities that any company can kind of do something about here, but only 39% of AI users had received any corporate training, and only 25% of companies are planning on offering training on generative AI this year. So,
Yeah.
Andrew, what's it like? If your company is not even acting like it exists, even if you're not going to invest in those tools, it probably behooves those executives or the company leadership to say, okay, here are proper ways to start using these tools.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the last thing you want, because one of the big things we know about generative AI, especially when it comes to generating content, is it gets you some percentage of the way there. It's not
Mhm.
something that really you want to use and then cut and paste and send it, or not cut and paste if it's doing it right in your Outlook like Copilot does. Um,
Mhm.
you need to look at it. You need to QA it, and so by burying your head in the sand and pretending like it doesn't exist, you're basically saying that you're complicit and okay with that happening. And if you want to make sure that people are using these things and being good stewards and using them responsibly, you need to know what they're capable of. You need to know what your people are using them for. So spend time
Mhm.
talking to people and figure out how they're using these tools. And you need to spend some time yourself and understand what the capabilities are so that you know what sort of guidance to offer your end users and your organization around what is it capable of, where are the pitfalls. And it's obviously pretty overwhelming because there's a new AI tool popping up. It seems like every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so I think that you have to be aware and you have to have a plan. And as overwhelming as it can be, start somewhere. Just start small and talk to your users. Talk to them about how they're using it, or how they've thought about using it, and
Mhm.
send out a survey, whatever. I don't know, Mike. Do you have any additional thoughts
Yeah.
on it?
Yeah, I think that's what's key is, again, going back to the people part of it is that if you have monitoring systems and like Microsoft Purview can help with a lot of this stuff and how it can create awareness for an IT manager and you can do those things. But I think maybe one of the wrong things to do is just to find people who are using these tools and then again come bring the hammer down, because you want that understanding, you want that feedback loop. I mean, you don't want people just going rogue and out there just adding anything. But you need to coach that on the onboarding and through your HR, some policies, just to let them know that you can't just bring any old tool in here. You may have some of that covered in an HR manual, but there's still some instances where company or employees, like for instance, these are real things that happen. A salesperson would say, look, I've got to write this executive summary on this document every so often. So I'm just going to take this information, or I'm just going to ask Copilot or ChatGPT or someone or some tool to write it for me. And it does. And it sounds wonderful. And I know of a sales guy that told me the story. He did that and then sent that to a customer and they went and they bought it. They were like, this is great. But this executive summary, I don't know who this company is, but that's not us. And they're like, but it sounded great. And it just literally made things up. But if you don't do, to Andrew's point, if they don't do the fact checking and making sure that that thing is not that it just sounds good, that it's accurate. And that's why Microsoft calls it Copilot, because you're still the pilot. You're still in control. And they have disclaimers. Microsoft's great about the responsible AI. So that part of it is important. And then the unintentional piece is the story of that engineer who was out servicing these big machines, and he was just stumped. He could not get this thing fixed, and he was on site with a client. So he took the schematics for that machine and put it in ChatGPT so that he could ask questions, and it was awesome. It really helped, and he actually solved the issue. And goes back to the company and explains what he did, and they were like, "Man, that's amazing. Let's present that to the board." And so the lawyer puts his hand in the air, going, "That is amazing, but can you get our data back out of ChatGPT? That's our intellectual property." And the answer to that is no. You put that up in a large language model. I'm picking on ChatGPT, but any of them, and it's there. And now competitors can search on that. And now, so that engineer didn't intend to do it. I think that's one of the biggest risks, is that folks are using these tools, shadow IT or AI within your organization. They are being more productive, but if you don't have some level of understanding of what sort of data is being loaded into these tools, it's risky, to say the least.
Yeah.
So were you going to say something, Andrew? Sorry, I
No,
didn't
no,
mean
I'm just agreeing with Mike.
So, as a few takeaways that I've kind of making mental notes there. So, one, Mike, you mentioned having some type of monitoring process. Maybe that
Yeah.
was you, Andrew, but having a monitoring process to see what tools are being used, where your data is flowing, then coming in and creating that governance framework. And so, from an AI perspective, there may be some principles in there that you wouldn't always have to think about from a normal tool vetting process, but some of those principles for an AI governance framework, transparency, fairness, are are the results that we've heard the horror stories about people who have used um, created recruiting tools,
Yeah.
by feeding data sets of acceptable applications
And
and
there's
and
unintended bias. Yeah.
unintended bias. So, what kind of fairness policies or principles, privacy, compliance with any of your regulatory organizations, and even performance metrics. Do you,
Yeah.
how quickly and how much drain is that on your current resources? Um, but I think maybe just in general, Andrew, I know you've helped a lot of companies go through in determining just how do you vet any type of tool that you would put into your tech stack. So do you have any takeaways that somebody might use now for establishing a vetting process for AI or any kind of other tool?
Well, yeah, it starts with understanding what outcome you're looking for by implementing the tool. So what need is it needing? What need is it meeting? Sorry, and identifying can the tool actually meet the need, for one, and then you have to look at the security of the tool and what risks are inherent in it. the complexity of the tool, obviously cost, all the things that you would look at when vetting a selection of any sort of tool to solve the problem. But I think it starts, and this is the thing I think most often I see skipped, which is kind of hilarious, is really focusing on the outcome you're looking for when you implement the tool.
Mhm.
And can that tool actually deliver that outcome? Obviously, there's people out there selling these tools that are going to tell you it can, but you really need to do your due diligence and make sure that what you're getting is what you think it is that you're getting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and on that, Andrew, I think it's important too is to understand, like when I see the AI tools being introduced, I think it's that feedback loop, because it's going to happen. But if you can foster this open reporting where, like, let's say that people are finding these new tools, like you said, new one comes out every 5 minutes, and you want to be able to open up a feedback loop to allow them to report, hey, I found a couple new tools that I really think could help us without any repercussion. It doesn't mean they're using them. It just means as they find them, open the door to let you know kind of what they are. And I know, just like on a Microsoft thing, what we help with is a lot of customers they understand the risk maybe now of these public large language models and other Google tools or ChatGPT types, but they want to have their own AI. Can I create my own copilot that will only consume my data, and I can ask it questions about my organization internally? And the answer is yes. That Microsoft has a couple of different ways to do it, and you can secure it. And so when we come up with these ideas, like I need to be more productive here, I've got another AI tool that I found here, they just don't realize that what they already have available to them or what can be built securely inside. And so I know that's part of what our Copilot Ascend offer is to get people sort of dreaming about what could happen.
Yeah, and Braden, our producer, Braden in the corner, quick on the draw.
Yeah,
Wow.
he was. He popped it up there quick.
Yeah. Nice work, Braden. Well, we are talking here, and Mike, you just gave me a layup there, but we're talking about adding new tools. The AI might be a new tool that you're adding to your tech stack, but you mentioned, things that are already available to you. So I know on our Ungrowth Show podcast, we joked a lot of times about creating a podcast called What's in Your Waffle.
Yeah, inside the waffle.
Yeah, so that waffle up there, for those who don't know what we're talking about, it's that application selector in your Office 365 ribbon. And so I know from a day-to-day standpoint, we probably each of us have our own rhythms of work. We're gonna check email, we're gonna live in Teams, we know OneDrive, SharePoint, it's a PowerPoint. Here's what we do day to day. But how many times do you actually go into that waffle and see all the tools that are available to you? So not just even specific to the waffle, that's just one indication, but a lot of times there's a lot more value in the things that you already own, but you're not utilizing it. Mike, talk to us about this a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's been out there forever. I think when we talk to IT leaders all the time, so in Q4, some things you could do is, if you haven't in a while, click on the waffle. I mean, that's just one easy thing. If you click there and you see some applications that are available to you, those are things you're paying for that you've never ever heard of, like Loop or Delve, or there's some classics that have been out there for a while, or some are even new. But the thing is, with Microsoft and the subscriptions, not only are there applications that are bundled into your investment that you may never have looked at, but you need to take a look to see what they do and how they could benefit your organization. These products always get better. Release waves come out. So there's new functionality always available that's getting added to these cloud products all the time from a Microsoft perspective. And these tools are only getting better all the time. But to your point, and traditionally what can happen is, if your organization is a code first mindset, and a person in a certain department, a leader says, you know what, my group needs a button that does this because I need to automate and do some things. And if you're code first, you're going to get your development team writing custom code to do that. Okay, that you can do that. However, you really, I believe, need to shift to more of a no code, low code mindset. And even before you go through, using like a Power Platform to do that, much easier to do, much easier to support, lower cost, that you should maybe look at the release wave to say, the thing you're asking for actually already exists in the product. We just need to activate it. Or maybe it has been activated, but that person hasn't been trained. So I think too many times that IT leaders will be faced with the increased cost of new technology, when all along they had some technology that they've already purchased that is just not being utilized to its fullest. The user adoption rate across a lot of products is pretty low. So we would say, take a hard look at that, increase your user adoption, and get the most out of your tech investments that you've already made before you add new ones.
And my energy saving sensor here thinks I'm not in the office. I'm going to gesticulate wildly for a second, get my lights back on, come back. All right. So
Yeah. I saw no difference, but it was entertaining.
So, all right. Well, with that, Andrew, I know you're one of the primary architects behind our TrellisPoint success framework. So, how often do you find, as you're going through the process, that a lot of our customer organizations have redundant or functionally equivalent tools?
Oh yeah, all the time. And
Every
I
time.
could go on for hours about the number of times we've helped customers get rid of tech debt that they didn't need, that they could do easier, faster, cheaper, better with tools they already owned. Just to give an example, um, two examples in the same kind of vein. One of the big areas is project management tools. You know, everybody needs some form of project management. We need to understand what it is we need to do, how, you know, the overall body of work, how do we get there, the tasks that generate that. But the reality is, most of us are not professional project managers that need full-blown Workfront, Clarizen type PM tools. In fact, they overwhelm us. And so I've had customers recently, just in the last couple of years, on each of those tools, who didn't need everything that they were getting from those tools, but they needed to manage bodies of work that they were doing. And we were able to very efficiently, cheaply, less than like fraction of what it cost their annual licensing, build them a custom solution inside the Power Platform in the context of their account and contact data, of their opportunity data, that allowed them to reduce the tech debt, not have to create integrations with those tools if they wanted that information relevant to the other information they had. And you know, it made their end users happy because it was all in the context of their primary system. And so that sort of story is pervasive throughout a lot of the organizations we work with, where what you'll find is a lot of times, because there isn't necessarily help, you know, we're stretched thin, teams go out and find tools to solve problems. And that's great. We love that ingenuity and that ambition. But when you create a new solution to solve a problem and it's on an island, now you've got data that's sitting out there that's important to your organization that's not talking to other data. And so it's critical to make sure that we're understanding what problems our users have, what tools we have access to, and how to make the most efficient and effective solution as easy as possible.
Yeah, Andrew, I want to follow up on that. So, you know, we're a Microsoft Solutions partner, and one thing, if you're not in that business, you may not know, but there are specific metrics that we as a partner get measured on, and those are what we call customer success metrics. And Microsoft really frowns on us as a partner if we sell a bunch of product and then you as the customer don't use it, right? It's so we want to make sure that there is value in the deployments or the workloads that you are implementing, you're trusting us to implement. So how can we go about helping a customer? And this is going to be for both of you. We want to start with Andrew first, though. When we get to the point where, okay, this implementation or this project is done, what lessons can be gleaned about making sure that those the tools that we've implemented actually get used? Are there any kind of knowledge transfer or training programs? What have you found is successful, Andrew?
Oh, for sure. But I would say that if you're waiting until you're done to have that thought or that conversation, then you've waited too long. That needs to be part of the process from the beginning. How are we going to make sure people use this tool? How are we going to measure its usage? How are we going to reward or you know, I don't like punishing users for not using things. I don't think that they ever do that, you know, maliciously. It's because the tool's not helpful, and if it's not helpful to getting their job done, then I don't blame them for not using it most of the time. So but you have to have that discussion at the beginning, and it all starts with solving problems for them and making them want to use it. If you can make the tools useful for getting the job done, or necessary for getting their job done, not even useful, but they absolutely have to use the tool to get their job done, that solves the problem. Then you have adoption. But again, to go back to the workfront example, moving project management from that tool into the Power Platform, into the Dynamics. Now that all of that work that was being done there now is being done in this other system in the context of all the other data. It makes that more valuable. It enriches that data, and it makes more people want to go in there because they can see, what's happening from a project standpoint in the context of what's happening from a sales standpoint, from a customer service standpoint. And so it's much more relevant and useful when we look at it that way. So you have to start at the beginning. And then, there's a lot of other important things you can do that I think Mike's going to talk about related to OCM and things like that. So.
Yeah, Mike, Andrew laid you up. So
yeah,
start
well, yeah,
talking.
on the OCM, yeah, and the thing I want to make sure that people understand is like, yeah, we do user adoption stuff all the time because we train people, and training and user adoption are different. Training is typically a one-time thing at maybe the end of a project. We're going to get users in and train them on the functional things that you need to do, and now they understand how to do it that day. User adoption is an ongoing process. As we said, I mean, these tools are all, and should be, for many reasons, integrated with each other. Microsoft tools integrated to third-party tools and vice versa. And so, as these products evolve, user adoption is a process of making sure that everyone understands what the new ways of working are available, and making sure they're feeling comfortable with that, so that they're not just a one-time getting value out of the tool, but constantly getting it. And you can do that through, discovering, champions within the organization that love that sort of thing. Open it up to let them see what's on the roadmap and what's coming, and what they can do with some of these tools. So fostering that sort of ongoing user adoption education throughout the organization is a big deal. You're going to maximize the value of the tools. But when it comes to like OCM, and that's all about change management. And I know it's becoming more and more popular, especially with AI, because no one truly wants to go through training. What they want is the knowledge at the end of the training. They don't want to go through a technology project. What they want is a successful implementation. So when we look at OCM and you think about the change, and you look at the people part of that, it's hard for people to go through. I've always used this system this way, and you're going to take that away and give me something new. Well, before you do that, as Andrew said, it starts from the beginning. Like our stakeholder buy-in, what is our messaging? Like, why are we doing this? You have to have a strong why. And how is it going to benefit us? And how do we communicate this throughout the organization? All part of a good OCM strategy. And it helps win the hearts and minds of people to get them on board with, what's behind it. They can carry that banner too, and they can get actually excited over the course of a project. And then the way we do it, a lot of times, especially when we're working with organizations, we're doing knowledge transfer throughout. We're not waiting till the end to hand over the keys and do a one-time brain dump. We want to partner with our customers to say, let's upskill your IT staff as we go through the project, to not just see what we did, but why did we do it, and what was the strategic reason that we're implementing something a certain way, so that they can better support it.
Yeah, so it's always not just the technical or the efficiency that we have to be concerned with. There's also that emotional impact of when I'm replacing a piece of software that this entire team has used, and what does that mean for me? And so all of that kind of needs to be accommodated in an appropriate change management plan. So Andrew, as we as we're looking at maximizing the time we have in Q4, what we have, and you said start small and be strategic. And so Q4, what can we do to set folks up for user and adoption? And I believe you had said, or you and I have talked about, start by understanding the biggest day-to-day challenges of your users and creating that inventory. Talk to me about how I can use Q4 to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you have power users and departments for the tools that you have, people who get it, who are always trying to get the job done in the smartest and fastest way possible, talk to them about what the challenges they face day to day are. What if they could solve one problem in their day to day, something that's complex, that seems like it's unnecessarily complex. Talk to them about that, and start to create an inventory of what those issues are, what systems they affect, or that could affect that problem. And You don't have to do anything right away, but create that inventory, and then draw some correlation, and aggregate those into specific systems or processes, and then start to prioritize and take action on those. And that's kind of a great way to just get an idea of where some potential low hanging fruit is. But also, that's also kind of the reverse of starting from that strategic level and working your way to those things. And neither approach is necessarily perfect all the time, but I would definitely also suggest starting at that strategic level and understanding what your problems are, as an organization, what you're trying to solve, and working the other direction as well. So I think you could do both of those things, absolutely, and they would both be helpful.
All right. Thank you. So, as we get into the home stretch of our time today, I know, Andrew, you'd mentioned earlier the fear of missing out, or whatever the next big thing is. I don't want to be behind the eight ball on that. So we've seen many times where customers have adopted a new technology because they needed it, or they thought they'd gain this, that, or the other thing. They really didn't think that through. So, not to say that just implementing something because your competitor did it is always a bad idea, but I'd like to talk about the concept of strategic growth. Right. So that's in our tagline, is growth the strategic way. So can you expand on what you mean by that?
Yeah, I can, absolutely. So to me, the growth the strategic way again, it's about having a strategic mindset from the beginning. It's not about technology or technical requirements. Take RFPs, for example. A lot of people think an RFP is a great risk mitigation tool, and maybe there are scenarios in which they're critical and useful. I think that there needs to be a strategic approach on top of that to get to that point, for it to be something relevant. But a lot of times with RFPs, what we're doing is we're instantly going tactical. We're saying, what are all the things
Mm.
we think the system needs to do, in order for us to select that tool, and then it also becomes a cost thing as well. And we're missing the boat if we take that approach, because that we're going straight to the tactical requirements of the tool, and not understanding what our problem is and what our goal is first. And so growth the strategic way is all about starting off with understanding our destination, understanding where it is we're trying to be as an organization, as a team, as a person, as a professional, and then taking that destination and mapping out your different routes for getting there, because there's always different routes, but then you have to determine which one is the best. And too often we just start trying to start the journey without knowing where we're going, and we all know that it's hard to get somewhere unless you know where it is that you're going. Maybe it's fun, and maybe the technology is cool, and you have some fun times along the way, but if you don't know where you're going and you don't have that strategic vision, it's hard to get there. And so I think that's the biggest point that I'd make regarding that. Another, just tidbit on that is, I love agile project management. Something I'm not an expert in. I'm learning about it, and I think one of my favorite things about agile, and the most strategic thing about agile, in my opinion, is, one of the great agile minds around here, at least, I heard him give a presentation, and he said agile is all about maximizing the amount of work not done. Like,
Mm.
and that just really was profound to me, because that's what it is. It's about maximizing the amount of work that's not done. Meaning, because you have such tight iterative loops, these 2-week sprints, whatever it is that you have, and you're constantly getting feedback, it's such a strategic approach to getting work done, because you're max. If you go 2 weeks and you realize you're going down the wrong road, instead of going 2 years or 6 months, now you only have 2 weeks of work that you have to throw out, or maybe partially throw out. And so it's all about having a strategic mindset like that, towards reaching your goals.
That's interesting. When you said that, just triggered a thought. I remember an interview with Eric Clapton years ago, where he said, playing the blues is not about playing every note on the fretboard. Playing the blues is about the notes you don't play.
Yeah.
Love
And
it.
it's like, oh, that's interesting. So,
Cool,
but
yeah.
if we're looking at Q4, what things that we can do, and what I'm hearing you say, Andrew, is strategic growth is about aligning your technology to your business goals. And so, Mike, I know you've sat with many customers over the years, and you have identified multiple times
Mhm.
instances where they are throwing people or software at a process problem. So
Yeah.
how do those issues typically manifest themselves?
Well, I mean, yeah, and it's very expensive. And it's you look at an organization, and now we've implemented this shiny new brand new software tool, and they've upskilled their people, and their people are solid, and they are now getting a mindset of user adoption. They've been trained up, and they're going to use that tool the way you just trained them to do it, but following potentially a flawed process. So when that happens, what you find is downstream, a lot of times they're doing the job that you told them to do. They're putting the data in, because most of the time it's what it is. It's the collection of and input of data. And then that tool is not performing the way that it needs to, or you expected it to, with Power BI reports or maybe an integration with another system. It's not the tool's fault, and it's not the person's fault. It's the process by which they're going about doing it. Or usually it's not one person, it's a team of people maybe doing it inconsistently, where some sales folks are putting in some data sometimes, but not all the data all the time, and others are, or there's no real rhyme or reason to it. So let's teach you how to use the tool, and you have a brand new tool, but it's not giving the output in its process. So many times when you start seeing that, though, it feels like we got to get that person more training, or we just need to add more people, or we're not going to do that. We're just going to enhance this tool, or maybe that wasn't the tool in the first place. Let's kick that one out and let's get a different one. You're going to get the same result if you don't look at process. And it's just a matter of getting it lined up. Make you do an audit just like you would do with your. It's pretty easy, but do it with your tech tool. Do it with your process map. Is a look at our main departments departmentally. What processes do we have documented? When's the last time they were updated? And does everyone follow them? And if the answer to any of those things are no, most likely have a process problem.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it can be incredibly expensive to keep investing in tools and keep investing in more people without also looking at an efficient, effective process.
Yeah, so using Q4, what I'm hearing both of you say is, as we're aligning technology to where we want to be strategically as a business, maybe it's time to pull out that tech roadmap that you put together 2 or 3 years ago. One, make sure that it's still relevant. Are you still working on a plan that's no longer relevant to you? Should you change it up? Should you modify it? Or if you've never sat down and done one, use Q4 to start doing that. Start putting that inventory of user challenges and needs and technology needs. Use Q4 to kind of plan that out. It's a good opportunity to do that. And so certainly we can help. We're coming to the end here. So let me see if there's any questions.
Yeah, on that point though, Brad, I would say right now what people can do, I think if they look back and say, what were the business outcomes we were trying to get this year? You're getting close to the end of the year, and have you achieved them? And for those that you would say we quite haven't, or we just completely missed, it's going to be a people, process, data problem.
Mhm.
One of those three, or all three. Just look at them. Where did you miss? And I bet you can narrow down to one of those three areas at a high level.
Yeah, one of the questions I'm seeing here, and I believe we've probably already answered. I believe I could get to answer this for Andrew, but it says we've made some tech investments in the past that didn't quite pan out. What should we be doing now to avoid the same mistakes as we plan for next year? And my guess is, and I don't want to speak for
No,
those,
Brad, you
but
go for it.
that that perhaps we didn't think about exactly what we were trying to accomplish with the software fully from a business standpoint before we implemented it. So,
Mhm.
is that maybe something, Andrew,
Yeah,
you would agree
100%.
with?
I think that, like you said, we've probably answered that, I hope, through the conversations we've had, but it all starts with having the end in mind, and visualizing that, what the outcome is we're looking for. We like to ask clients, when we cut the ribbon on this and say we're done, what's true? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Visualize that. What are the things we can say are true when that happens, so that we can all high five instead of be in a room and ask, why did this happen this way and why are we here?
Mm-hmm.
That's not what we want. I know it's not what our customers want. And so at the beginning, we need to visualize what it is that's true. When we're done, that means that we won.
Which is usually checking off these business outcomes. We are all about those outcomes. I mean, that's the reason when customers engage us, is that we want to understand what they are and why it's meaningful to your mission and your business, and what can we do to make sure that your people, process, technology, data, all that stuff lines up. And at the end of that, we're checking some boxes. Look at the outcomes we were able to help you achieve by working with TrellisPoint. And the first step of that is that strategic growth workshop.
Yeah, so talk to me some more about that. So as we are looking to maximize our time in Q4, looking to Q1, we might have some attendees today that are looking for a more customized approach. And we try to hit on 4 big topics today. But if you're needing more of a customized approach to try to utilize and set yourself up for Q1 success, Mike, talk to me about the strategic growth workshop.
Yeah, what I absolutely love this. There's so much value that's in this, and it's free. It's a first step in our TPSF process. And what we do is we get a good cross section of the people in your team, the leaders. We put them on a 2-hour call. We're going to walk you through the first part of that, of our process, which is this workshop. And then there's an output of that. Like you actually get a document that we've taken, we've organized. It includes things like your business goals, your objectives, your priorities, your tech stack. So there's a lot of value baked into this. We've done this for a lot of customers. There's a ton of value, even if you don't move forward. A lot of customers do want to move forward, but even if you just took advantage of this, let us give you a quick 2-hour strategic document so that you can use that for next year. That there's just I can't tell you how much value is baked into this. It's really a good thing.
Yeah. Well, we want to come back and just thank everybody for your time today. If you're interested in a strategic growth workshop, if you registered for this webinar and we have your email address, we'll be emailing this out to you. So please don't flag us as spam. We'll just be following up with that. If you registered on LinkedIn or some other platform, we'll just be posting a link to this offer on our social media. So free to find us up there, or just hit us up on our website, TrellisPoint.com. We're happy to talk to you. Mike and Andrew, we appreciate your time so much today. Thank you for all the insight. Go out there and help our customers succeed today through strategic growth. If you haven't already, find us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platforms for our Ungrow show. We have some new episodes coming up. We really appreciate the engagement we're getting on that. So thank you again. We appreciate everybody's time and dedication today, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, everybody.